One of the most undervalued cryptocurrencies currently out there is Reserve, right? And guys, I have a treat for you today. We're going into the TLDR on Reserve, so everyone is on the same level and hopefully can research the project based on the information I provide you today. Now, this is the TLDR on Reserve. I am coming out with an in-depth breakdown on Reserve, going over the tokenomics, partners, team, and obviously how the protocol works in about a week or two, so you guys can obviously look forward and stay tuned to that. But this video, for the most part, will be a TLDR, hopefully just making sure we're all on a similar wavelength. So, what is Reserve and why the hell am I so interested in it? Well, Reserve isn't like some of the other projects I look at on this channel, right? It's not a layer 1, it's not a layer 2, it's nothing fancy. It's just simply a decentralized application on Ethereum. And I'm going to use simply in a very, very loose terms there because obviously it's not, right? But it's a dApp on Ethereum. And to kind of explain how Reserve, well, the use case for Reserve, we got to kind of look a little bit into money and inflation. Now, believe it or not, this isn't the first time I've recorded this video, and every single iteration I carry on and on about inflation, and the video goes for longer than what it's supposed to be, right? It's a TLDR video. So I'm going to assume most of you guys understand the crisis with inflation, but more importantly, I'm going to presume you know the extreme crisis with hyperinflation in some of the impoverished countries, right? South American countries, for example, is a prime example because we'll touch on that in a second. These guys pretty much wake up and, you know, half of their money from the day before is gone, okay? So it's extremely important that we kind of create, or a currency is created that's stable enough to support, you know, a store of value, for example, right? You can put $1,000 in it today, and in 10, 20 years' time, it's still going to be around about, or if not $1,000, right? And we just haven't come across that yet. We have had hard money in the past, right? 1,000 years ago, there was seashells. You know, another few thousand before that, it was rocks. And then, you know, somewhat recently, relative to time, it was gold, right? We had the gold standard. And you know, gold was used, you know, melted into coins and transfers, and then the gold standard came across, and obviously it came quite unfeasible because it's not really scalable across space, right? It's hard to move gold from place to place. It is, you know, sound across time because obviously it's always going to appreciate. There's only a finite amount of gold, and it's hard to mine, okay? So, but this whole thing of space is difficult because it's hard to transfer gold in large quantities. So this is why, you know, currencies came about. The US dollar was once upon a time, and so was pretty much most other currencies, backed one-to-one to gold. And then eventually it became, well, you know, the US is going to be, or the UK, or you know, the British pound was once upon a time. Then for smaller settlements and countries, that was their kind of like reserves, right? They just held lots of, you know, their currency, which was then sort of backed up by gold. And over time, obviously, these countries have printed more and more and more of their paper money. It's slowly become unbacked by gold. You can't walk into a bank or any sort of institution nowadays and take out for $100, get $100 of gold. It's extremely hard to do, and it's kind of defeats the purpose of why money was created at all, okay? So this is kind of the premise of Reserve. This is why Reserve was created, to kind of find a solution to this so-called money that we're currently using, right? Okay, all that money really is at the end of the day is something that you and I agree on that is legal tender, right? I could give you this pen, for example, and if we both agree that this pen is a form of tender, that you accept it for whatever payment, you might give me a horse, I'll give you this pen, right? It's a pretty valuable pen. But you guys get the idea, and this is why Bitcoin is so powerful. As long as enough of us believe that Bitcoin is going to be a store of value or is valuable, it can become some sort of tender, right? And the governments don't like this. But nevertheless, Reserve is creating what are called R tokens, right? Now, it is a decentralized application. That's Reserve. That's the protocol. It's a dApp on Ethereum. But you can actually create R tokens from the dApp. Now, all these R tokens is a token that is backed by a group of assets. A basket of assets. It needs to be tokenized. Obviously, we're talking about blockchain stuff here. So tokenized assets that any user, you or I, could spin up and create, right? So for example, I might go ahead and create Chiron USD, right? Obviously, that's implying that it's going to be pegged to the US dollar. And so for this basket of assets, I might say, well, I'm going to use USDT, USDC, and BUSD. So for you to mint one Chiron USD, you must have whatever ratio of those three assets that I pick. Now I can pick 50%, USDC and 25, or I can go 33, which means to mint a Chiron USD, you need whatever that ratio is, right? So it might be 33 cents of each to mint one Chiron USD. Now with this Chiron USD, you can go around and, use it as a form of tender, right? As long as it's adopted, it is a form of legal tender. Now, the minute that you don't want Chiron USD anymore, right? Instead of, just like, you used to be able to go into a bank. Well, I wasn't alive. We weren't alive back then, right? Walk into a bank or whatever it may be, the Reserve Bank, and actually take out the equivalent of gold. Well, the same thing. You can mint down these R tokens into their collateral assets, okay? So in that case, those three assets are named. You can mint down a Chiron USD back into those once you're sick of using Chiron USD for tender. So it's extremely powerful, and there is a token that is the kind of like the only R token currently in use called RSV. Now RSV was kind of like Reserve's initial starting R token, and it's currently backed by BUSD, which is soon to be moved out, and they're going to replace that, and also USDC. Okay, so yes, I kind of mentioned it already. You can interchange these, right? You can have reserve, no pun intended. You can have reserve assets on standby to replace if you want to get rid of, or if the markets indicate you need to get rid of a current, used asset. So anyway, I'm kind of off topic already. So essentially, this token RSV is actually being used as a form of stable currency. It's pegged to the US dollar in some of these South American countries, right? I'm not going to list them, but it's most South American countries. And it's all through an app that Reserve has that they plan to bring to the whole world called RPay. Now, RPay is awesome. It lets you, do a whole host of things, right? Again, it's only available right now to South American countries, or should I say it's only in Latin, so we can't really understand or use it right now in other countries. But nevertheless, you can, send money to banks. It interconnects with some, payment providers. And also, these people in these countries where they have hyperinflation can have their wages paid into RSV tokens, right? Again, it's stable to the US dollar. And from there, obviously, either trade with them, and there's about 1,000 merchants currently in these Latin American countries that accept RSV, or they can simply switch it out for US dollars, it's all in the app, and use the US dollars, or then, if they like, just switch it out into whatever their fiat currency is. So the most important thing here to say is they can store their, wages, savings in an actual US dollar stablecoin. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? US dollar is still depreciating, inflation is still happening, but guys, just like we see gold as going up in price, for them, you got to understand, their money is losing value every single time they go to bed. So for them to be able to put money into US dollars, it's a miracle, right? It's a lifesaver, literally. So it's extremely important, and it's kind of proving the proof of concept, right? So we know it's working. And this is just one R token. This is just RSV. Now, RSV has about $28 million in market cap in it right now, which means there's about 28 million US dollars, in these Latin American countries, or anyone can really mint an RSV token. But more or less, most of it's coming from these Latin American countries. People are keeping their money in there. Also, if you hold one of these R tokens, so if you hold RSV, for example, as a as a quote-unquote example, there also is mechanisms in these R tokens that allows the holders to earn money, just like you would holding, your money in a bank account, earning interest, right? And that you don't get taxed. There's no like tax. There's no way that, you mint an R token, you're going to get taxed a certain amount of percentage in order to fund this. No. The power of DeFi, the power of being on Ethereum as a smart contract is you can utilize the Expanse ecosystem, okay? And just look at liquidity pools, or how you can yield farm, right? So we can use these tokenized assets in the collateral basket to actually go and, earn rewards back. And this is what funds the people that, put their R tokens in or hold their R tokens, incentivizes them to hold them for longer, and also obviously get more money back, right? Now, that being said, the native currency on the network is RSR. So what we're going to talk about very briefly is kind of like the requirement for, or a need, should I say, for people to want to buy RSR. And this is going to tie into my price prediction in just a second, okay? So essentially there's three tokens we've discussed, right? We've got the R tokens themselves. It's kind of like, Reserve's equivalent of a decentralized application in their own kind of unique way, where anyone can go ahead and create one and then use a bunch of tokenized assets, whether that's gold, silver, stocks, bonds, whatever it may be, to create this, right? To mint an R token, right? So we also have the RSV R token, right? Prime example right now of a real stablecoin with real implications. That's actually, working on it has a real proof of concept right now. It's working, okay? So RSR is the native token in the Reserve protocol, Reserve network, okay? So the incentive for anyone to want to actually use this is staking to an R token. You can stake your RSR tokens to any R token or multiple R tokens at any given time and receive what's called STRSR or staked RSR. Okay, now there is a whole host of potential things, good and bad, that can come from this, right? You can potentially lose some of your RSR tokens in this case. You can potentially make more money if the actual R token makes money through these, yield farming sort of ways. But I'm not going to go into that in this video. That's kind of beyond the scope of this video. I'll go into that in the other video. But all you need to know right now is that there is demand for the RSR token, just in case you were wondering, all right? So in saying that, before I do touch on the price prediction, I'm kind of wanting to really ingrain in your heads the idea of what the demand is for Reserve, right? Because without demand and without a really, really good meme, a project means nothing, okay? So there's a pretty good meme in this case, right? But touching on more so demand, we have some seriously big partners and investors in RSR, right? Specifically, one of the guys who is an individual investor, he himself is the co-founder, he's the co-founder of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, right? We also have Peter Thiel, who is also the founder of, or co-founder, should I say, of PayPal. Again, there's a whole host of them. There's a whole heap of large cryptocurrency VCs that are also invested here, and a whole bunch of awesome partners that obviously can come from such a thing, including PayPal themselves, right? So again, I'll go into that in the other video, but more or less, you guys need to know there is a hell of a lot of demand and interest in Reserve rights. Okay, so that out the way, let's touch a bit on my price prediction. Okay, so to find any sort of token price in future, we need to know two very important variables we're all taught bloody coming out of the womb, right? Simply supply and demand. Now, demand is just the market cap. What will the future market cap be? And I've kind of given you a pretty decent picture of the potential demand for the RSR token to stake, to earn higher rewards, to fund these R tokens. When these R tokens get really, really big, of course, more people are going to need RSR tokens. Also, when you boot up these R tokens, you do need some RSR tokens to actually go ahead and create one. There's a whole host of things. Plus, we also know that it's high in interest with these amazing investors and partners. Okay, so right now, the market cap of Reserve rights is sitting about $250 million. It's quite small, but also relatively quite large for someone that's, a fiend that wants the high multipliers. Okay, some of the micro cap fiends. But we'll touch on what I think the market cap can go to in a second. The really interesting thing about Reserve is the supply. There is 100 billion max tokens that will ever be in supply. Okay, that's quite a lot. Quite a lot for a protocol like this. Now, about 46% of these tokens, so about 46 billion tokens, are currently in circulation, and they are totally the complete vested tokens, meaning there's no more tokens to be vested. Right, so naturally you think, okay, well, there's about 54 billion tokens that has to be emitted, or inflation. There's no inflation. These tokens are held solely by the team. Now, they're held by the team, but they're not locked. Okay, so the team has 54 billion tokens they can use whenever they need to. However, in the actual protocol's code itself, it's hard written that if the team woke up tomorrow and decided to implement 10 billion tokens into circulation for whatever goddamn reason, well, they'd have to give people 4 weeks notice. They actually cannot, those tokens will not be released as of the smart contract code until 4 weeks after they enact that. Okay, so we're notified 4 weeks in advance, either through their social media or through written message on chain, that these X amount of tokens will be released. So as investors, we naturally have about 4 weeks to go, okay, I don't really like this. Their reason for unlocking these tokens ain't good. It's going to dilute the supply. I'm getting out. Obviously, we know that's going to have quite a large implication when it comes to, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people trying to sell out their RSR tokens at once. But you guys get the idea, okay? So that was kind of their idea behind that. Nevertheless, they can, implement any quantity of these tokens whenever they want. So for me to go, okay, I'm going to kind of predict where the circulating supply is going to be in 2 years' time, tip at 2025, it's literally unfeasible for me to do so. I can't do it. It's impossible, right? But the good thing is, the team, as far as I'm concerned, are extremely respectable. They're smart people, and they're playing it correctly. There would be no need for them to, push out any tokens for any unnecessary reason. They have stated that these tokens predominantly will be used to develop and bring to fruition our tokens, right? That's their main use case. So I don't see there being any malicious reason for why they want to bring these out. Again, regardless, we're notified. So to give you kind of like an idea of where I think the circulating supply will be, I'm going to keep it nice and easy and say that I'm going to say that no more tokens are going to come into circulation. And I know that's not something I would typically say. I like to work off worst case scenario. But what is the worst case scenario? It could be 10 billion. It could be max. We just don't know, right? And there's a huge amount of tokens here. We're not talking about a little amount. We're not talking about 10% of 10 million. We're talking about 54% of 100 billion. So rest assured, I have no idea. Now, with that out the way, with the disclaimer out the way, the market cap being about 250 million right now, I'm going to presume a minimum of 10x from here at the top of the next bull market. Keep in mind, the market cap was at its all-time high its previous all-time high was about 1.1 billion dollars, should I say. So for me to say 10x from here, that's pretty much doubling what it was previously, okay? Which is, I think, fair enough, but it is a small cap project, so by my own admission, I should be giving it a 4x, okay? So really, the token price should be more or less about 40x from where it is now, okay? So for me to tell you that, the only issue is, again, I can't say for sure the token price will be 40x in 2 years. The market cap might be 40x, but depending on supply, the token price could be a lot less than what we think. We might think of 40x, but realistically, the token price might be a 20x, depending on the dilution. Okay, so keep that in mind, guys. And I think, the most important thing to do is take profits, yeah? So it's easy enough for me to say, yeah, right, it's going to go to 10 cents or 20 cents, whatever that may be, right? 40x is what, 20 cents? But you guys want to be taking out your initial investment before that, right? Take out your initial investment, or maybe make a 10x on your initial investment, and then start bloody selling, you can let us sell out your profits. Don't be greedy, guys. One thing crypto's taught us is don't be greedy. So with that being said, again, stay tuned for my full breakdown on reserve rights coming to you hopefully very, very shortly. And with that being said, take care, do your own research, and I will see you in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.